What's up? Roger Ratchet coming at you again. And today we're in the Cherokee again. And today we're just going to show you how to put in a simple aftermarket radio. And this original stereo in it. And if I can keep the camera from swinging on you. Okay. Now, what we're putting in it is just a single DIN JVC radio, and I've already put this in the aftermarket bracket because I just got the simple bracket. You just slide these two pieces in there and then put some screws in the side of the radio to hold it in. You don't use your slider piece or anything. The reason I got this because it gives me a little pocket right there and just slide my cell phone in it to hold it while I'm driving. I didn't show you that in the video because there's just so many different styles and applications for different vehicles, or you got single DIN, double DIN. I figure most people is going to put in double DIN these days. Not a lot of people is going to go the way I went, because I'm just looking for simplicity. So the first thing I need to do is we got our little tab puller tool here, and we're going to just stick it in here and pry outward across the top. And then we're going to go down here beside our vents and pry out there. And that pops right off, and we can set that out of the way. Now, we get us this application. We can use a Phillips screwdriver, so we'll get us a Phillips screwdriver. We got 4 screws here on the factory radio. We will take those out. And we'll lay them down here in our little tray so we don't lose them. And yeah, I know guys, it's kind of a long screwdriver for what we're doing, but it was the first one I came to, so that was the one I grabbed. And now we've got those out. We just simply get a hold of our radio and pull it out. And we will unplug our antenna. Maybe, there we go. And unplug our wiring harnesses here. This one has 2 plugs. This little plug here, guys, we're not going to worry about it. We're not using it. This vehicle, it comes with a 10 CD changer in the back, and we are not going to be using that CD changer. Now we will set that radio aside, and the next thing we got to do is, normally on these you'll have to get an antenna adapter, but since we had to change, well, we didn't change the antenna, we just put a different antenna in on this. And I just simply temporarily rigged this up to work with this radio until we were prepared to install the new radio. And I'm sorry guys that I didn't show you that video putting the antenna in, but we had some technical difficulties, so unfortunately we don't have that video to show you. But right here we're just going to unwrap all this electrical tape that I had on it, just holding it together. And yes, I went a little bit overboard on the electrical tape. And then we just simply, well, that is our adapter piece. Simply unplug it and we have our standard antenna plug. Now, the next thing we need to do is, I don't like cutting into factory vehicle wiring. So I bought an adapter plug for this, and we will wire the adapter plug to the wiring that comes with the radio. And I don't have that wiring out here with me because I left it in the house. That's something that we don't have to be in the vehicle to do, and I would prefer to sit in a comfortable chair in a comfortable climate to do the wiring on it. That way I can just take my time, make sure I don't forget anything, do it right. So I'm going to take you guys in with me, and I'm going to show you the wiring process. So stick around, we'll be right back. Okay, now for our wiring, and we are doing the wiring inside to make it a little more comfortable. We don't have to have this in the vehicle to do it. Got some automatic wire strippers here, needed on the radio side of this, but not this side of it. This is the vehicle adapter plug. They have pre-cut our insulation for us on that. Now on this, we're just going to take one of our little wire crimps here, put it on our wire, and we're going to crimp only the side that the wire is in. Absolutely no more than half of it at this point. And I have some heat shrink here that I have pre-cut, and these are about 1 3/4 inches long, just so we'll have enough to cover all of our wiring. We'll slide that on the wire, then we'll put our other matching wire, and this is ground wire, black to black. Slide that into the other side, and then we'll take and crimp the other side. And now we're going to turn it a little bit sideways and do a side round crimp on it, just to round over the corners so the heat shrink will go over it easier. And we slide our heat shrink over this, and you can feel through the heat shrink to feel where that wire coupler is in there. Get it about center, and then we take us a heat gun or a lighter or whatever you choose to use, and just heat it up to where it shrinks down on the wire. And I am using the heat shrink that does have the glue on the inside. So when this shrinks down, it is completely sealed off. And there we go. That's all there is to that. Completely sealed. Now, this is fairly easy process. I always like to do my ground wire first for some reason. But then we go on the outside of this one, which is a yellow wire, and we'll go over here to this one and we get our yellow wire. We're going to strip this side down just a tiny bit. And I like to twist my wires a little bit. It keeps them from hanging up on the wire crimp when you shove it on. Put that on there, and just so I don't forget, I'm going to go ahead and put my heat shrink on the wire. Shove him down there. Get us another wire crimp. Shove it on the wire. And you can do it this way too, as long as you got your heat shrink on there, you don't forget to put it on. So go ahead and shove both wires in. Then you do that, you can crimp all the way across the wire. And like the other one, we'll turn him sideways and do a round crimp to knock those corners down and make our heat shrink slide on a lot easier. We need to fight it if we don't have to. Slide our heat shrink up here and feel, make sure we get it centered or close enough to center. Get our heat gun. Shrink him down. And that's good for that one. Now you can crimp all of these at the same time and then run the heat gun last on all of them. But I would suggest to do it this way. And you know, we're going red for red, so this is direct power wire. But I would suggest doing it this way because you get that many heat shrinks together, you're going to heat shrink somewhere that you're not ready to shrink, and it's not going to be in position. And then you're going to have to cut your wire to redo it, to get a new heat shrink on there. Or worst case scenario, just throw electrical tape on there, which I don't trust when it's something bouncing around on the inside of the dash. So this is red to red, so it's a direct power wire. And by direct, I mean this wire. See? Gotta get our heat shrink on there. But by direct power, I mean this wire is always supplied with 12 volts at all times. So, let's get this one on here. And which, by the way, fellas, that yellow wire is our accessory wire. And what that does is it has 12 volt power running to it, but only when you have the switch turned on. So out of all of these wires, these are the two wires that you want to make sure that you do not have any wires showing that could short out, because it could be very bad. And if you don't have a heat gun, you can use a lighter. If you don't have a lighter, you can use the wife's hair dryer. It works just as well. Okay, so we've got our ground, our two hots. Now, looks like we have our orange. And this one on this side is orange and white. I'll fish him through here. And the orange wire, I know some of you guys won't hook it up, but what the orange wire is your light dim wire. So when you turn your headlights on, it dims the lights in the radio so it's not blinding you when you're trying to drive down the road at night. So get this one in there. And if you get you a good crimper, guys, you don't have to pop your eyeballs out of your head trying to squeeze it hard enough to crimp it. A good crimper, you should just be able to squeeze it with moderate pressure with one hand, especially when you're using connectors of this size. And make sure we get it in the middle, or close enough to the middle. And I'm using the low setting on the heat gun here, guys. Because it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure, a lot of heat. Okay, now that should be all of our hot wires. Now, don't get me wrong, your speaker wires are hot too, but they're not direct power like those wires. So, speaker wires are easy. All you have to do is match up collar for collar, and the collars are pretty much universal. You got two whites. You've got one white and one white with a black stripe. You have two grays, one gray and one gray with a black stripe. You have two purples, one purple with a black stripe, and you have two greens, one solid green and one green with a black stripe. And you will have that on both sets of your wires. Some people will have a white stripe on there instead of a black stripe, but it's a stripe nonetheless. So we are just going to go ahead and strip all of these down. And seeing as how we're doing this inside and not in the vehicle, nothing is plugged into anything, so we know that there is no hot power going through any of our wires here. And I'll tell you what, these automatic strippers, guys, this is the way to go. I mean, the countless seconds that I've wasted in the past with a pocket knife stripping the insulation off of these. And this, it just, you throw it on there, you squeeze the handle, and it's done. And you can be precise with this. I mean, they're not right down to the microscope exact, but they are all right there. You don't have to worry about it not pulling off enough or pulling off too much. But yeah, when it comes to wiring, I think that is one of the best investments I've ever made. So we'll just twist all these up. And We'll go to this side. We'll just pull these ends off of here. And we'll twist them up. And if you see the red on my fingers, guys, that's not blood. It's just red grease. I made the mistake of laying a grease gun on top of my heat gun one day. Got some grease on it. And I just haven't yet taken a rag to wipe it off. Okay, now the remainder of our wires are prepared, and these are all speaker wires. So now this blue guy, I shouldn't have pulled the end off of him. Blue is not a speaker wire. That is for like if you're running an amp or a power antenna, something that needs to be powered through a wire on the radio. And I clipped the bare wires off of it. And now, let me find, let me see here. That one's probably too big. Let me see here. I wonder if I can double up in one of these. We'll cut one and find out. Because I did not have one cut for this. I'm just cutting a piece of heat shrink, and I'm going to fold the end of that wire over like that with no bare wire sticking out the end of it. And we are going to slide, if we can, a piece of heat shrink over this, which I believe this heat shrink is too small. So we will go to the next size up, which unfortunately is a pretty big size. So, cut us a piece of that one off. I don't have every size of heat shrink. And I'm just going to push that up there to where the edge of the wire where I folded it just barely shows out the edge of that heat shrink. And then we're going to just heat it, shrink it down. And this is the plug adapter for the vehicle side. So this is the one that most vehicles you don't have to worry about. The one you mainly have to worry about is this one that plugs into the stereo, but they have already pre-taken care of that for us by the stereo manufacturer, so we don't have to worry about that on this one. Okay, now back to the stereo wires, and looks like we have gray on the inside, so we will start with gray. This one is gray, and this one is gray with black. So let's go ahead and throw us a heat shrink on each one of these grays. Now, put us one of these on here, and this one is gray with black, so that one is just plain gray. So on this side, we get the plain gray wire. Shove him in there, and I had a wire that didn't want to go in, so twist him up, try it again. Stick him in there. Cramp him down. And turn it sideways. Get our round crimp in there. Like I said, guys, this has absolutely no purpose on the round crimp except for helping to get the heat shrink on there. Get us another wire connector here. And let's grab our gray with black. Put him in there. We'll crimp him down. And this is the crimp that connects the wires and holds the connector on there. Round crimp is just to round off those corners, because when we do our main crimp, it spreads out on each side. So we just round it off so our heat shrink slides on it easier. Now, when you're doing multiples at the same time, you push one heat shrink up here over it, you center it up, and let it set there. We'll get our heat gun in our hand, and we will wrap our hand around this other heat shrink to make sure our heat doesn't hit it while it's not in place yet. We will heat this up, and be careful, guys. You don't want to touch that metal on the end of this heat gun because it does get hot. It'll get hot enough to burn you. There's that one. And now we can slide this one up here and center it up a little bit further. Yeah, it looks good. Crank him down. And we're not worried about heat going on to that other heat shrink right there, because that one was already shrunk down, so it's not going to shrink down anymore. So we're not going to fret about that. And there's that one. Okay. Now our next wire is in line. It's going to be white. Okay. They're lined up different on this side. So, since we took gray first, we will take green next. Let's do solid green. Let me get a heat shrink and put on here first so I don't forget it. Now let's get us a connector on here. Twist it down a little bit. It was flared just a little bit on the end. And This one is a solid green. So we'll put him in that side. And yeah, fellas, I'm back to doing one at a time. I just did two at a time to show you. I prefer to do one at a time. I think it's easier. You don't have to keep track of as much at one time this way. And also, by the time you let go of this wire, you are completely done with it and you don't have to go back to it. Okay, and we'll put that in the middle, or close enough to the middle. I think that's good there. Yeah, I got that one a little bit one-sided, but that'll be alright. I've got everything covered, nothing showing, so it'll be good. Okay. Now we will put our heat shrink on the green with black. Get our connector on here. And come over here, grab our other green with black. Put it in there. And yes, I'm feeling I did put the heat shrink on there. I like to double check before I start crimping. And you can tell everybody that double checks something that they have made that mistake before. That's why they double check, because they don't want to do that work twice. So we'll roll crimp this. Get our heat shrink up here. And I'll tell you what, we've come a long way over the years in order of heat shrink. Used to, you didn't have very many sizes, and if you got glue inside of it, you had to put it in there yourself. And you had to make sure you didn't get it too hot or you'd burn clean through it. So we have come a long way in the way of heat shrink over the years. Okay, now we're going to go purple. And I got one wrapped up, so we'll just pull him free. Okay. And this one is purple with a black stripe. Okay. Sometimes it's a little rough to see the stripe on the purple in dim lighting, which just brighten it up just a tiny bit. Make it a little bit easier. Yeah, I can see it now. And we got black, purple with black stripe. Get us a connector on here. And put this on the other side. A lot of people hate wiring, which I don't mind it. It's not hard. Once you get the basics down, it's not hard. unless you have to pull wiring out of the loom and put your wiring back in the loom over a great distance. Then it gets tedious. But other than that, wiring is not, it's not hard. Once you get the basics down, it's not hard. Okay. Keep this one down. And now we will grab us another heat shrink and put it on solid purple. And grab our other solid purple. Put a connector on here. Get my wire bits to stay together. There we go. Shove our other purple in there. And crimp it down. We will round crimp it. Put our heat shrink about where we think middle is. And shrink it down. Now, the only wires we have left are white. So since this is the first white one I grabbed, a solid white, we will do it first. Get me one more heat shrink. Throw it on there. Get that on there, and we need solid white. So we'll put that in there. And I don't know how much the radio guys get paid for putting stereos in people's car, but they're not getting paid for difficulty. What they're getting paid for is time, because this isn't hard, it's just time consuming. In order to do it right, which is the way I'm doing it, I like to try to do everything the right way. It is a little time consuming. But I would rather consume time and do it right than to take a shortcut and my vehicle burned down because the wire shorted out. Okay. One wire left. We'll grab us a heat shrink and duck down there. Get us a wire connector. Throw it on there. And you can use the wire connectors that has the hard plastic shielding on it, guys. They work too. Just don't use your hard crimp. It looks like a nipple in there. Don't use that part on those because it'll break the plastic. And I would suggest after you crimp that on it that you do use either a heat shrink or electrical tape over it. because they are a loose fit, and another piece of wire or end of a screw or something in your dash can go in there and short things out. And don't use household wire nuts, guys. Those are not made for vehicles, and for good reason. Okay, center it up, put some heat to it. And there it is. Our wiring system is now complete. All we have to do is plug this end into the vehicle wiring harness, plug this end into the stereo, and then we can move on. So, since we have this done, I will see you all back out in the vehicle in just a minute. All right, I'll try to get you guys situated here. Okay, we're back in the vehicle. Our lighting has went down since we were out here. Let me see if I can do anything to help out here. No, probably not. But we're out the vehicle. We got our wiring harness with us. Let me aim you back down here to our empty radio hole. Okay, now the adapter plug that we wired to our radio plug, we just simply plug it in. It'll snap into place. It's not going to come out. Then we take our radio plug, the other end of the wiring harness, and we plug it into the back of our radio. Now we take our antenna wire. Well, of course I showed you that because it's not on there. We just plug that guy in, and that's not quite all, because this radio is Bluetooth. So, and I probably should have pulled this out of the bag beforehand so I would be ready, but what fun would that be, right? And I don't know why they double bagged that, but okay. But yeah, this radio is Bluetooth, so we do have a mic that plugs in. So we are going to unwind this as much as possible, and then we're going to take our plug side and we're going to drop it right down in our little pocket here. Which is another reason to have this adapter plate that has the pocket. And I'll show you guys that here in a minute. So I'm going to get this pushed down through here. And it's not wanting to cooperate. It's getting weak in the knees, or maybe my fingers just aren't wanting to work because of all the wiring that we did inside. Okay. Almost have it. Almost. There we go. Now, the advantage of having a pocket is almost all these pockets, guys, they have holes in at least one corner for dirt and dust and all your crap to fall out of. So that gives you an access hole to run a mic wire through. If you hook up the mic the way I am going to hook it up, I will probably have to take and cut this off later and put a, yeah. Or I can just bring it up here and stick it to the dash. Either way, and I do not know what I did with the wire tie I took off of that. I thought I'd just laid it right here, but I do not see it. Oh, there it is. It flipped and flopped on me. Okay. Now, I don't like all these wires all grouped up back there, and they give you plenty of wire on these mics. So, what I am going to do is roll most of this up. And not all of it, just most of it, because if I do want to stretch it somewhere else on the dash, then I'll have that little bit extra that I can use. And I think that'll be plenty. So, we'll take that, wrap our wire tie around it. Fix that together so we don't have all of that wire flopping around back there. We won't put it underneath our antenna wire, and then we will put it in the port that says mic. And there we have that. Now what we've got to do is get all these wires shoved in here in a place to where they won't impede the radio and stay up off of the heat sink on the back. We've got one wire here that's trying to escape out the bottom. We'll get him in there, put the radio in place, and these are vehicle specific adapter plates, guys. So before you just go to the store and just buy one, make sure that it is either single DIN or double DIN, whichever radio you're getting, and make sure that it is listed for your vehicle, because you don't want to go spend that money, go home, open the package up, which is more than child-proof. It's more than adult-proof. Put the thing together, put your radio in it, put it up to the dash, and find out that it won't work. Because a lot of times you have to break tabs off of brackets to put it onto the plate, and when you do that, they will no longer take it back. So you want to make sure that it is the right one for your vehicle application. And again, it's just plastic, so we're not torquing these guys, we're just snugging them up so they don't back out, that's it. And I've got plenty of wire to do with later what I want to. We just put that up there and simply push in where our tabs are. And there is our aftermarket radio. And a cell phone will hold it. It'll hold my cell phone in that pocket, so I don't have to worry about it flopping in the floorboard every time I hit the brakes. And let's just turn some power on. And there we go. So, yeah. It's not bad, guys. Like I said, I just bought a cheaper JVC radio doesn't have any CD player or anything in it. It does have an auxiliary port there. It's got a USB port right here, and it is Bluetooth. Okay. Now, just to make sure that we have sound, and I am not hearing any sound. So, we have something that has went awry here. Well, we need to nope, we don't want preset mode. Let's go ahead and get out of that. Okay. Figure out where my menu is, guys. Okay. So oh well, I will work on this and figure out why I don't have sound. Okay, just a little update on the no sound on the stereo. As you remember, we had, when we were wiring everything up, we had a blue wire that we did not hook up because of no power antenna or anything. We're not hooking up steering wheel controls or anything. Turns out that this is an older vehicle with a power amp, and the power amp is not run into the power like the newer vehicles, so we needed to get power to that amp in order to get sound, and this is the wire that the amp uses to get its power. So we hooked that blue wire up, and as you can tell,
total grid to the facility's presence will be paid for by Sun Energy One.
We now have sound. So that problem is fixed. And I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. So that is the fix for the no sound. Everything worked correctly except for no sound. Don't return your stereo, guys. Just hook up that blue wire. It doesn't hurt anything to have it hooked up. So until next time, I'm Roger Ratchet, and thank you for watching.